Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Julio Martinez Clark, and he is the founder and CEO over at BioAccess. Julio, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. So excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to talk about innovative clinical trials in Latin America and really Medtech leadership in general. But just to get us kicked off, how did you get started in this industry? Like, where'd that start for you?
Well, Adam, it's been a long journey of about 15 years. I was in the telecom and networking industry. I worked for Lucent and Nortel. I did a business in Latin America, Europe. And then my brother Pedro called me one day and he said, "Hey, Julio, I'm working in, he's a physician. He's a Harvard trained interventional cardiologist. And he was advising U.S. medical device startups that were developing advanced cardiovascular technologies. And I've always been a business guy. I got my MBA in Boston, so I led international teams for Lucent and Nortel. So it was kind of a perfect fit for what Pedro wanted to do. He realized that in his work of helping U.S. medical device startups that were developing innovative devices, he saw that there was really nobody in the U.S. helping these companies with their first-in-human clinical trials overseas, more specifically in Latin America. So we joined forces, and since 2010, I've been leading BioAccess. We've grown the company exponentially, and yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Wow, that was an amazing story. And maybe go further into BioAccess, like in your work. So you've been, in business now for 15 years or going on, over. Tell us a little bit more about like the work you're doing today.
Well, the struggle that U.S. medical device companies face is really about time to market or time to get a clinical trial started anywhere in the world. In the U.S., it's becoming more difficult and expensive, et cetera. So they are forced to explore options overseas. So they usually go to Eastern Europe, they go to Australia and Latin America. So we help these companies finding these sites or hospitals that can test the safety and efficacy of their innovations. It is usually the first experience in live humans that these companies have. So they are very meticulous in the site search and selection because they're putting all their eggs in one basket. They just need an investigator overseas who has the right patient population and can recruit them for the study and can benefit patients. And these studies are usually small, 5, 10, 20, up to 20 patients. And we help them finding those investigators in Latin America and other parts of the world as well. But our focus has been historically in Latin America. We're also expanding to Australia and Eastern Europe. But we help them with the site search and selection, the regulatory approval processes, and the importation of the investigational devices, the management of the studies, the reporting of adverse events, et cetera, et cetera. Everything in between that is needed to make these clinical trials a success.
Can you talk about any trends you see shaping the medtech industry today? Like, what kind of trends are you following?
Yes, there are a couple of trends that I've seen recently. The first trend is the growth of the medical device industry. Before, about 15 years ago or so, devices were very passive. They weren't really that smart, but with advanced manufacturing techniques, with the onset of artificial intelligence, and also the aging of the population, devices are becoming smarter. They're everywhere. They are outside of a hospital setting. They're in our hands, in our pockets, in our homes. So they are all over us. And devices are now something that is trailing the pharmaceutical industry. In the outsourcing of the clinical research efforts. The outsourcing of clinical research started with the pharma industry about 20 years ago. That's why you saw IQVIA, PPD, Parexel, the big contract research organizations that many people know about. But in the past 5 years or so, there's been an increasing trend to create Medtech contract research organizations. In other words, these are newer companies that are being created just to cater to the needs of the Medtech industry. as opposed to the pharma industry, because pharma and medtech, they are different. I mean, they look similar, but they are different. So that's the main trend that I see: smarter devices, new organizations that are being created to cater to the needs of the device manufacturers. And the other trend that is more recent has to be with political changes in the United States, which is the layoff of the FDA, the delays in getting trials approved in the U.S., the increasing expenses associated with healthcare procedures in the U.S. So this is forcing a lot of companies to go overseas. So that's why we exist, to help them find sites overseas.
Now, I know that this can vary, so I want to make sure that I ask the question correctly. But when you talk about conducting fast clinical trials, like, what do you mean by that? Can you give any time frames of maybe if somebody went maybe one route versus another working with your company? Like just give me and I know that can vary, but I want to make sure I understand what fast clinical trials mean. Like what some of the benefits are of working with BioAct.
Exactly. Well, in the U.S., getting a first-in-human trial approved can easily take a year. I mean, by the time you start exploring your options with the different hospital systems, having all these meetings with these large hospital institutions, trying to find a willing and able investigator who can lead your trial, then getting through the IRB approval process, getting through the FDA approval process, getting through the difficulties in recruiting patients, because these trials are very, very risky, and it's just difficult to get these trials approved in the United States. I mean, at least a year or more with the political changes that we're seeing now in the different government agencies, more specifically at the FDA. Companies can go overseas and they can save a significant amount of time. I'm talking about activating a site or starting a trial in just 60 days, 90 days tops, which is record time as compared to the other option. So,
And if you think about that, like that time, that other, let's say 9 months or 8 months or even 7 months, I mean, that's, when you think about the burn rate of a company, right? That's valuable time where every day they're burning cash to get this, done, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's one piece of it. So obviously, possibly the savings. Is there a savings also in just overall costs for doing it abroad, other than the burn rate and obviously it's faster? I'm just curious, or if that's kind of like neck to neck.
Of course, yes. There are two more advantages, Adam. The first one is just time savings, which is money really being saved, significant chunks of money, as you correctly said. The other is how easy it is to recruit participants in these trials. Patients are really, really in need of participating in these trials because of the way the healthcare systems work in these different countries in Latin America more specifically. They are public healthcare systems, so patients have to wait for months to see a primary care physician, and to see a specialist will take them even longer. They have to wait in line from 3 in the morning until 9 to get seen by somebody who can give them an appointment or give them a medication. So it's just difficult for a regular patient in a Latin American country or a developing economy to have quality access to the healthcare system. So a clinical trial is a fast-track way for patients to have access to the system and to be treated with dignity. And cost savings, of course. I mean, we all know that the cost of living in developing economies in Latin America is way lower than the United States. I mean, many of your listeners have gone to Mexico on vacations or have traveled around Latin America, and they know that everything is just cheaper. I mean, the salaries are lower, the cost of living is lower. You can have meals for cents in the dollar. So it's just a different cost structure that you have in Latin America. So usually companies save about 50%, anywhere between 30 and 50% of what the same procedure would have cost in the United States.
Yeah. Well, Julio, this has been great, first off, learning more about what you're doing at BioAccess and your journey. I just have to ask, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for the company? Tell me about the plans moving forward.
Yes, the company is expanding, Adam, as I alluded to earlier during the call. We are expanding operations to Australia and to Eastern Europe. And also we're expanding operations in the biopharma space. In other words, we see the need for these companies to have more options. And by including other countries in our portfolio or in our value proposition, we can give our clients options beyond Latin America. And also biopharma. Biopharma has the same struggle, the same needs that Medtech startups have in the U.S., and they're also looking to conduct fast clinical trials overseas. So I think the next chapter for BioAccess is to get into these two different areas. Geographical expansion and also industry expansion.
Fantastic. Julio, if somebody's listening to this or watching this and they want to learn more about BioAccess, how do they connect? How do they learn more?
Well, our website is bioaccessla for Latin America.com, bioaccessla.com, or on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have over 30,000 followers. Just Google BioAccess or just enter BioAccess on LinkedIn or in Google. Or my name. I'm always on podcasts. I write articles about the industry and topics related to clinical trials overseas. So I'm easily searchable on LinkedIn or on Google.
Fantastic. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put the links in the show notes so you can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Julio, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Adam, for having me here. It was a pleasure.